Have you ever found yourself questioning why a certain person in your life seems to thrive on deception and manipulation? Do you wonder why, no matter how much truth you bring to the table, they continue living in their delusion? Have their actions ever affected your relationships, your faith, or even your sense of identity? Maybe you've asked yourself, why is this narcissist in my life? Is there a greater purpose behind this battle? What if you are not just a victim of their behavior, but actually anointed by God to expose the truth and set others free? In this story, we'll uncover the 5 key signs that God has anointed you to break the narcissist's delusion. You'll discover the spiritual principles behind your discernment, your courage, and your calling. More importantly, we'll explore how God has been preparing you for this mission all along. If this resonates with you, be sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, where we dive deep into biblical wisdom, spiritual warfare, and the truths that set us free. Now let's begin this journey together. Sign 1. 1. You have the gift of spiritual discernment. Some people walk into a room and immediately sense the atmosphere. They can tell when something is off, even if no one says a word. Have you ever felt that deep knowing in your spirit? An awareness that someone's words don't match their true intentions? This is the gift of spiritual discernment, and it is one of the clearest signs that God has anointed you to break the narcissist's delusion. This principle has helped countless people avoid deception, recognize manipulation, and walk in truth. But it's not always easy. The world often praises charm over character, flattery over honesty, and appearance over authenticity. So when you see through the mask, it can feel like a burden. You might even wonder, why do I have to see what others don't? Why can't I just ignore it like they do? The truth is, people want peace, clarity, and real love. But they often settle for illusions because they don't know how to tell the difference. That's why discernment is so important. Without it, people remain trapped in lies, constantly questioning their own reality. But when you embrace this gift, you help others step into freedom. There's power in knowing and doing. Some recognize deception but are too afraid to call it out. Others see the truth but pretend not to, thinking it will keep the peace. But what happens when you allow deception to continue? It grows. The more you let a narcissist operate unchecked, the more damage they cause, not just to you, but to everyone around them. So what should you do when people act the wrong way? Should you expose them immediately? Should you confront them? Sometimes wisdom tells you to wait and observe. Other times God calls you to speak up boldly. Discernment is not just about knowing the truth. It's about knowing when and how to act on it. A perfect example of this is found in the story of Jesus and the Pharisees. The Pharisees appeared righteous, quoting scripture and demanding obedience, but Jesus saw through them. He discerned their hypocrisy and called them out as whitewashed tombs. Matthew 23:27. Beautiful on the outside but full of decay inside. Yet he didn't always confront them right away. Sometimes he answered with wisdom. Other times he remained silent, letting their own words expose them. The positive side of this story? Jesus' discernment sight protected his followers from religious manipulation. The negative side? His willingness to speak the truth made him a target. Discernment will cost you something, maybe relationships, comfort, or approval. But it will also set you apart as someone God trusts with deeper revelation. This principle will help you appreciate your gift rather than resent it. Instead of feeling burdened by what you see, you'll recognize it as part of your calling. You are not meant to be deceived like everyone else. You are meant to bring truth to light. So what should you do in these situations? Pray for wisdom. Stay grounded in Scripture. Trust that God gave you this gift for a reason. And when the time comes, don't be afraid to stand firm in the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes others. C.S. Lewis once said, "Courage, dear heart. It takes courage to see what others ignore. It takes even more courage to act on it. But if God anointed you, He will also strengthen you." If this spoke to you, be sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, and stay tuned for the next powerful principle. You won't want to miss it. Sign 2. You have no fear of exposing the truth. There's something powerful about a person who refuses to be silenced. Have you ever noticed how certain people will twist reality, manipulate facts, and try to rewrite history, just to protect their false image. And yet, no matter how much they try to cover up the truth, there are those who stand firm, refusing to back down. If you are one of them, it's a sign that God has anointed you for this battle. This principle has helped countless people break free from deception and oppression. But it's not just about seeing the truth, it's about having the boldness to speak it, even when it's uncomfortable. People want honesty, freedom, and justice, but many are afraid of the cost. Have you ever found yourself wondering, why do people defend lies so passionately? Why do they attack the ones telling the truth instead of the ones spreading deception? The importance of this mindset cannot be overstated. When people are afraid to expose the truth, darkness thrives, lies become strongholds, manipulation becomes the norm. But when even one person dares to stand up and say, "No, this is not right," everything begins to change. Knowing and doing are two different things. Many people recognize deception but remain silent to avoid conflict. But silence is agreement. The longer you allow a lie to stand, the stronger it becomes. This is why God calls certain people, like you, to be a voice of truth in a world that prefers comfort over confrontation. So what should you do when people are acting the wrong way? Should you call them out? Should you wait and let things unfold? Wisdom is key. Sometimes, the truth needs to be spoken boldly. Other times, it needs to be revealed through action. The key is to follow God's timing, not your emotions. A powerful biblical example of this is Elijah and the prophets of Baal, 1 Kings 18. The entire nation of Israel had been deceived into worshiping a false god. No one wanted to challenge the system, except Elijah. He had no fear of exposing the truth. He stood alone against 450 false prophets and called down fire from heaven to prove that God is the only true God. The positive side of this story? Elijah's boldness led to revival. The people turned back to God. The negative side? It made him a target. Queen Jezebel sought to kill him, and he had to flee for his life. This is the cost of truth. When you expose deception, don't expect applause, expect resistance. But also expect God to stand with you. This principle will help you appreciate your courage instead of questioning it. Instead of feeling frustrated that others don't see what you see, recognize that your boldness is a gift. You are meant to speak truth in a world that prefers lies. So what should you do in these situations? Pray for wisdom, stand firm in truth, and refuse to be intimidated by fear. Remember, truth may be attacked, but it can never be defeated. C.S. Lewis once said, "Integrity is doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." If God has given you the courage to stand for truth, don't back down. Your voice matters more than you know. If this message spoke to you, make sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, and stay tuned for the next principle. The journey is just beginning. 3. You see through the illusions others fall for. Have you ever watched someone be completely deceived by a person you knew wasn't genuine? Maybe it was a narcissist charming their way into someone's trust, or a manipulator playing the victim while secretly pulling the strings. You tried to warn others, but they didn't listen. They couldn't see what you saw. This is one of the clearest signs that God has anointed you to recognize the truth hidden beneath the illusion. While others are captivated by appearances, you see the reality. This principle has helped countless people avoid being trapped in toxic relationships, false teachings, and destructive patterns. But it can also feel isolating. You may ask yourself, why do they believe the lies so easily? Why do I see what they don't? People want love, security, and belonging, but deception often disguises itself as these very things. The narcissist presents a false version of love, one based on control instead of care, on manipulation instead of mutual respect. And because people long for connection, they fall for the illusion. This mindset is crucial. If you don't recognize deception for what it is, you will be drawn into it. But when you develop the ability to see beyond appearances, you become someone who can lead others to truth. Knowing and doing are two different things. It's one thing to see through an illusion, but another thing to act on that knowledge. Do you call it out? Do you wait for them to realize it on their own? If you rush ahead, they may reject your insight. If you say nothing, they may suffer unnecessarily. Discernment isn't just about seeing, it's about knowing when and how to respond. So what should you do when people act the wrong way? When they follow a deception that is obvious to you, but invisible to them? Sometimes the best thing to do is plant a seed of truth and let God water it. Other times, you need to step back and let them learn through experience. Either way, never stop praying for their eyes to be opened. A powerful biblical example of this is Paul before his conversion. Acts 9. Paul thought he was serving God by persecuting Christians. He was blind, literally and spiritually, to the truth. Many believers saw through his illusion, but they couldn't change him. It took a divine encounter with Jesus to open his eyes. The positive side of this story? Paul's blindness was temporary, and when he saw the truth, he became one of the greatest apostles of all time. The negative side? Before he was transformed, many suffered because of his deception. This is the reality of illusion. It can cause great damage before the truth finally breaks through. This principle will help you appreciate your ability to see clearly. Instead of feeling frustrated that others are deceived, you can recognize that your gift of sight is not just for you. It's meant to help others when the time is right. So what should you do in these situations? Be patient. Keep speaking truth, but don't force it. Trust that God will reveal the truth in His perfect time. C.S. Lewis once said, "A man can no more diminish God's glory by refusing to worship Him than a lunatic can put out the sun by scribbling darkness on the walls of his cell." The truth remains, no matter how many believe the lie. If this message spoke to you, be sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, and stay tuned for the next principle. The best is yet to come. 4. You have been prepared through fire. Have you ever found yourself in a season of intense difficulty, where it felt like everything you held dear was being tested? Maybe you went through personal trials, painful betrayals, or loss that felt unbearable at the time. And yet, somehow, you made it through. Have you ever wondered, why did I have to go through all of that? The truth is, God uses our trials to prepare us for our calling. This principle has helped many people understand that pain is not pointless. It's part of God's refining process. He uses the fire to burn away what doesn't belong, leaving behind a stronger, purer version of you. While others may have avoided difficulty, you've emerged from the fire with a wisdom and strength that only comes through experience. People often want comfort, ease, and security, but those things don't lead to transformation. In fact, they can make us weak and complacent. True growth happens in the crucible, where we are tested, refined, and reshaped into the person God needs us to be. This mindset is essential, because without it, we may resent the very things that prepare us for our future. Knowing this is one thing, acting on it is another. Many people run from difficulty, trying to avoid the fire at all costs. But the fire is where God does His deepest work. So how should you respond when life feels like a constant battle? Instead of retreating, lean in. Trust that God is using every trial to prepare you for something greater. The story of Joseph, Genesis 37-50, illustrates this perfectly. Joseph's life was marked by betrayal, rejection, and imprisonment, but each hardship was part of God's greater plan. Though his brothers sold him into slavery, and he was falsely accused of a crime, Joseph's trials eventually led him to a position of great power in Egypt. The positive side of this story? Joseph's time in the fire prepared him to save an entire nation during a time of famine. The negative side? He endured immense pain and loneliness along the way. But without those experiences, he wouldn't have had the wisdom or character to handle the responsibility he was later given. This principle will help you appreciate your trials instead of resenting them. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you'll begin to ask, "What is God teaching me through this?" So what should you do when you find yourself in the fire? Don't panic. Don't run. Stand firm, trust God, and allow Him to refine you. And remember, the fire may be painful, but it's also purifying. C.S. Lewis once said, "Hardships often prepare ordinary people for an extraordinary destiny." Your trials are preparing you for something greater than you can see right now. If this message spoke to you, be sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, and stay tuned for the next principle. You won't want to miss it. 5. You are called to lead others to freedom. Have you ever felt the weight of responsibility when you see someone trapped in the lies of a narcissist, manipulated into believing they are powerless. Have you ever found yourself thinking, why am I the one who sees the truth? Why am I the one who can help them break free? This is the calling of those who have been anointed to expose the delusions of narcissists. You are called to lead others to freedom, not just for your sake, but for theirs. The truth is, many people live in bondage to lies because they don't have anyone who can show them a way out. This principle has helped many find their voice and step into their divine role as a deliverer, someone who can show others that there is more to life than manipulation and control. What do people really want? Freedom, peace, and truth. They want to break free from toxic cycles, but they don't always know how. They don't know who to trust, and they don't know where to turn. This is where you come in. The importance of this mindset cannot be overstated. You are not just here to observe, you are here to act. You have been given the knowledge, the courage, and the discernment to help others find their way out. Knowing and doing are inseparable. It's one thing to recognize that someone is trapped, but it's another thing to step in and lead them toward freedom. This isn't always easy. In fact, it can be messy and uncomfortable. People may resist your help, or they may not even realize they need it. But the importance of doing this cannot be denied. People are waiting for someone to show them the way. So what should you do when you see someone acting in a way that keeps them in bondage? Should you confront them immediately? Should you let them come to their own conclusions? Sometimes the best thing to do is to love them through it, to be present, to offer truth in love, and to patiently wait for God to open their eyes. Your role is to be a guide, not a forceful authority. Lead with grace, not condemnation. A powerful example of this is the story of Moses and the Israelites, Exodus 3-14. The Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, trapped in a cycle of oppression and false belief. They longed for freedom, but they didn't know how to break free. Moses, though reluctant, was called by God to lead them out of slavery and into the Promised Land. The positive side of this story? Moses' obedience led to the freedom of an entire nation. The negative side? The journey was long and difficult. Many of the Israelites resisted the change, longing for the comfort of their old lives, even though they were enslaved. This is often how people react when they are shown the truth. They resist the unknown, even if the unknown is better. This principle will help you appreciate your calling to lead others to freedom instead of feeling burdened by it. Instead of thinking, I can't make a difference, you will recognize that God has chosen you for this very purpose. You have the tools, the wisdom, and the grace to help others break free. So, what should you do when someone resists your help? Be patient. Keep speaking truth in love, pray for their heart to soften, and trust that God will work in their lives. C.S. Lewis once said, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. But when you love others enough to lead them to freedom, you are stepping into the very heart of God's purpose for your life." If this message spoke to you, be sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, and stay tuned for the next principle. You won't want to miss it. Conclusion. Have you ever found yourself looking back on your journey, reflecting on the twists and turns, the struggles and triumphs, and wondering, how did I get here? It's amazing how God's plan unfolds in ways we could never have imagined, isn't it? Each step of the way, He's been guiding you, preparing you, and strengthening you for the calling that's uniquely yours. As we've explored these principles, you've probably realized something powerful, that you're not just living your life for yourself. God has anointed you to end the narcissist's delusion and help others find freedom, truth, and peace. You've been given spiritual discernment, the courage to expose the truth, the ability to see through illusions, the strength gained from trials, and the calling to lead others to freedom. So, what now? What does all of this mean for you in your daily life? It means that you are no longer a passive observer. You are a vessel of change, someone chosen to make a difference in the lives of those trapped in deception. It's not always easy, and it's certainly not always comfortable, but it's what you were created for. You are called to live out these principles and to help others navigate through their own challenges. This isn't just theory, this is real life. Your life matters. What you do with these principles can change the trajectory of someone's future. You may not see the immediate results, but trust me, God is working in ways that are beyond your understanding. C.S. Lewis once said, "You are never too old to set another goal or to dream a new dream." No matter where you are in your journey, it's not too late to step into the fullness of your calling. Don't let fear or doubt hold you back. You have everything you need to walk in the freedom God has for you and to lead others into that same freedom. If this message has resonated with you, make sure to like and subscribe to Sermons of C.S. Lewis, because the journey doesn't end here. There are more principles to explore, more truths to discover, and more lives to change. Stay tuned, and let's continue walking this path together. The best is yet to come.